morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Philadelphia. Hey, listen, it's going to be warm today. So just because it's warm, don't be a goofy. Just don't be goofy today. And you know exactly what I mean by running around with T-shirts on and shorts and stuff, getting yourself sick. Don't be goofy today. Just because it's warm. Don't be a goofy.
People, you could tell the people that can't wait for the springtime to come.
They get out. Well, I guess I'm one of the goofy ones because I got on a T-shirt. You know, I guess as I look down at myself, yeah, I'm one of the goofy ones.
All right, don't be goofy. I would say a lot of people would classify the end of the Eagles season as goofy, Hugh, because they were 10-1, and obviously it finished not in the right way. We had a lot to react to today, including my first chance to react to the A.J. Brown interview. We'll get to that coming up. And, of course, Howard will join us 11:30. Elliott live from Indianapolis for the Combine. But, Hugh, as we start the day, and I think we all want to turn the page to the offseason. We all do. But I think before you turn that page, you got to have one last little look at what the heck just happened here. And I'm on, my Inquirer app this morning, and I'm reading a story here. Nick Sirianni played favorites as Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were treated different. Story by Marcus Hayes. We'll get to some of the quotes in there. But there's just continuing more and more about what happened at the end of the Eagles season. And I've thought about this a lot, and I'll count myself as part of this, but I do think that we've overreacted a bit to what happened here. We'll get to this article and what was said in here, some of the quotes. But the more I think about the end of the Eagles season, the more I think we have had a lack of answers, so we've looked for answers. We've looked for reasons, and now we are thinking about reasons why maybe they don't like each other, and maybe this, and maybe that, and maybe the coaching staff. The reality is this. It snowballed. The Eagles weren't that great. They had a good record, but they weren't that great. It snowballed, and I do think the last month and a half with us, the whole fan base, we've overreacted a little bit because we're looking at this team and saying, oh, my goodness, they're bad now, when the reality is they were probably an average team the whole time, and it just hit us how quickly they went from 10-1 to where they are. Hugh, when you think about the end of the season, including some of these quotes in the article today, the idea, and Marcus Hayes wrote this, he talked to a veteran off the record in late December, and those quotes are printed today with that veteran's blessing that this is now in the Philadelphia Inquirer, talking about how some guys were not held as accountable as others, including Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Here's a quote in terms of, asked if Brown's on-field conniptions and his 2-week media blackout were affecting the team. An accomplished veteran player said, quote, I don't know about that, but I will say it doesn't help when they treat two guys in different ways. With that, he nodded at Hurts' empty locker. What about Brown? Quote, yeah, I guess some guys can't do anything wrong. Hugh, your reaction to all this, and do you think we've overreacted to the end of the Eagles season?
Lot to digest, Joe.
There's a lot going on here.
I don't think we overreacted to the way the season ended. I'll say that first. And just let me say this too. The what you talked about as far as the anonymous player talking about people getting preferential treatment. Now, when I read this story and I went through it, the first thing that I did was try to put myself in that position and think about back when I played, and also try to understand and relay that it's different now. When I played, Joe, it was nothing for the quarterback and key players to be treated different. It's certain guys that because of their play and what they bring to the table, they are going to be treated different. So initially, that didn't move the meter for me initially. But then when I got to thinking about it and how the NFL has changed and how sensitive a lot of guys are to criticism and people saying things about them, I had to give the story some validity, because gone are the days where I used to sit in meetings and I played with guys and they know who they were that didn't get criticized a whole lot. I used to get cussed out all the time. Didn't bother me. And I say, like anybody who's been in the meeting, ask Ike. If you talk to him later on the day. I used to get a dog cussed by my coach. I didn't bat an eye because that did not bother me because I was out there making plays. And at the end of the day, that was the bottom line, is you're out there making plays. And you knew that for the most part, you talk to you like that so that it gives him credibility or whatever. So it didn't bother me. But nowadays, when you talk about people being treated equal and wanting to be treated equal, the reality of it is this. Everybody's not going to be treated equal, regardless to how much money you make or whatever. If you're a baller like Jalen and AJ are, you're probably going to be treated different. But this is a different era in the NFL. So there's probably some validity to the way that somebody felt, veteran player felt about certain individuals being treated a certain way. You got to get over yourself, dog. Everybody's not going to be treated the same in a locker room. That's just the reality of the situation. It's been like that since I can remember, since I was a little peewee playing football. The young man that played quarterback at 8 years old was treated differently than I was treated as a defensive lineman, and that's just the way it is.
215-592-9494 gets you aboard. Hugh, that's an interesting perspective. And look, this article today, it adds to a lot of the stories that have been out there over the past couple of months, which is locker room issues, right? Turmoil. Some guys feeling they're treated differently than others. Maybe the quarterback not connecting. That was out there last week with Derek Gunn. Every week, every couple days, it feels like there's a different report on what happened to the Eagles. And here's how I feel today. And we've talked about every single one of these. And obviously, A.J. Brown came on our station just a few days ago to kind of clear the air what he feels about some of the issues. The way I feel today is as the offseason begins. I mean, today it begins. When Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni talk today, it's the end of last season and it's the beginning of this season. 2024 starts today for the Eagles. The beginning of the offseason, the combine, free agency is like a week and a half away, and it's all going to change. This team's going to change fast. My feeling today is we overreacted to the end. We've looked for reasons why it fell apart. We have dove so deep because we didn't have the real answer. But sometimes you ever hear of Occam's razor, like the most simple answer?
Yeah.
Simple answer is probably the right answer.
Uh-huh.
And I think the simple answer was the Eagles were never that great. They had a nice record. AJ even said that on Friday with Jack and Ike, that they knew they weren't that good of a team. So while it smacked us in the face the way they went from 10-1 to falling apart, the reality is they probably weren't that great anyway. So the end of the season, it just went bad. It snowballed on them. They had a head coach who probably wasn't ready for handling it. They had two coordinators who weren't good enough this season. I don't think things are quite as bad as we feel they've been the last 2 months. I do think we've overreacted a bit here, Hugh, because we have looked for reasons. Like we keep saying that. Why did it happen? Maybe it happened because they weren't that good anyway. It could have been it. Maybe they weren't. If a great team falls as quickly as they did, it's like, what? But maybe they just were good with a very shiny record, and then it fell very fast.
No, I don't believe that. I believe that this team was a good team. They started off good. They just went to the Super Bowl. I think, now I might be calling me crazy, but going to the Super Bowl.
You're crazy, Hugh.
Yeah, basically. But going to the Super Bowl, Joe, that's a hell of a measuring stick. That means that you were, at that time, the best team in the NFC. You deserved to go.
Yeah, they were. They were in 22.
And I know that things happened where it felt like you didn't deserve to be there. Let the San Francisco 49ers tell it. But you had a run during the course of the season what made me feel like this was a good football team. Now it fell apart. Now, do we know exactly what it was? No, we don't. And I will say this. They were doing things. To AJ's point, when he talked about, we weren't a good team, they were doing things unconventionally. I'll give you that, because there were some times where they would win games and I would look at them and scratch my head and say, wow, you're not supposed to win like that. But they did. They did. And along the way, they beat some pretty good teams. So I can't sit here and say that their whole season was fugazi. Now, somewhere along the line, it fell apart. And you know what the ironic thing about all of this is? This Marcus Hayes story. I don't know what happened, but when you read that and you hear players, veteran players, talk about how different people were treated differently and things like that. Like I said, I came from a locker room where everybody was treated different. That's just how it was, and it didn't bother me. But when you hear that makes me think that, there was something that might be part of the problem. Because now I go back, because see what I do, I like to piecemeal things together. Even though one might not have anything to do with the other, I go back and I look at certain things that happened during the course of the season. Like, just for example, your number one that Dallas Goedert gave to to Jalen Hurts on the sideline, Now when I read the story, I'm like, maybe that's why he gave him the number one, because he felt like in that situation the ball was dropped and the play was improvised, and it wasn't the right one, and he was frustrated. Maybe that was the case. I think there's something to this, but whatever it is, I think Coach Goober's going to fix it. You know why?
Why? Because
he's new and he has no loyalty to anybody. But to sit here and say that it wasn't an issue, I would say, no, that's crazy. It was an issue. It was a big deal.
I think it became an issue because they were frustrated at what happened here. I don't think it has to remain an issue, and I think And part of what AJ was trying to say on Friday is, look, it went bad, but it doesn't mean things are bad forever. It doesn't mean the locker room's bad. It doesn't mean his relationship with Jalen is bad. 215-592-9494. Guys, I think we've overreacted to this thing. The Eagles were probably never, the 2023 Eagles, I'm not talking about 2022, the 2023 Eagles were probably never great. We got an expectation they were great, so it smacked us in the face when it fell. But the reality is maybe they weren't that great. AJ said that on Friday. They kind of knew they weren't that great. I think all this locker room stuff, the chemistry stuff has been an overreaction because the team just wasn't good enough on defense, and for whatever reason, the offense couldn't adjust. 215-592-9494. Have we overreacted? Did we overreact over the past month or so to the end of the Eagles season? Roseman and Sirianni talk today. We'll have that for you live on WIP.